Good evening, everybody. It's Friday, September 29th, I guess. Well, to everybody to welcome my guest, Shark Eyes,
Good to see
all
all
the
of you.
way from the future. He's in the future.
This is true.
It's true. He is. He's somewhere in September 30th. We're all stuck on the 29th in the U.S., except for Zazel. He's right there with you, so you know.
He sure is.
He's in the future, too.
Yep.
So, all right. So how you doing tonight?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. It's a beautiful sunny day here in Melbourne. I'm alive, awake, and alert after a night out with some friends, and I'm feeling quite chipper, surprisingly. So, ready to go.
That's a good thing. This is a good thing. So,
Absolutely.
hit the wrong button there. As you know, kind of the icebreaker I use. Funny. Icebreakers go. Funny. Okay. I'm being jokey there. The icebreaker I use is kind of getting to know you, but it's a Myers-Briggs. It's based on Don McMillan's stand-up. So we are on the Myers-Briggs chart of geek, nerd, dork. So what we're going to go with, we're going to cover some of these and we're going to talk about them and we're going to see where you think you stand. So
Cool.
in order to fall into the geek, nerd, dork section of the world, we have to have these three things. We have the high IQ, we're socially awkward, and obsessed. Those are the three circles that kind of encompass really toy collectors. Let's be honest. So if you have a high IQ and you're socially awkward, you would be qualified into the dork category.
Mhm.
If you have a high IQ and you have a good obsession, so i.e., collect toys, you would be the geek. If you're obsessed and socially awkward, you might be a stalker. And unfortunately, I have had a couple people admit to being stalkers. So do with that what you will. So
Well,
if you have all three, if you get that measure in the middle where you meet all three of those of high IQ, socially awkward, and obsessed, then you're the nerd. Where do you think you
yep.
fit?
Well, I'm definitely not socially awkward. I have
Okay.
no problem holding a conversation out in the open. I'm fine with that. Um, Definitely, probably a little obsessive, and I've never measured like my IQ, but I'd like to think that I'm intellectually, not too bad. So I'm falling in between obsessive and high IQ.
All right. No, you're good. You're good. Then that puts you into that geek category, which
That's
is
me,
kind of where a lot of us toy collectors fit. I'm more into the nerd because, autism's always fun.
right?
Get that nice socially awkward, years and years of training to get to where I am. I can mask very well.
Oh, really?
Most people don't know it.
I didn't have a clue.
But I came across something this week that I thought was interesting, and I kind of want to get your take on it. It's a Japanese word. Let me see if I can get it to come. It's ikigai,
Okay.
and it of course is Venn diagrams again.
Yep.
So we have this thing up here, a circle of you love. You have
Hmm.
a circle of good at. You have a circle of paid for, and you have a circle of world needs.
Okay.
When those all intersect, that's ikigai.
Okay.
So me, I love talking to people. I'm good at talking to people, sadly. I don't know how that works. Was I paid for it at one point? Yes, I was. Does the
Right.
world need more people like me? I don't know. That's debatable. I can't really debate that. But it got me really thinking about what my niche is in kind of the toy spectrum because I'm the guy that brings people on to talk about why they play with their toys.
Hmm.
Is part and parcel of what this is from start to finish is finding out what connects us
Okay.
and how we use the things that we enjoy to manage life,
Hmm.
because that's all we're doing every day is we're managing life. We're not
Absolutely.
We're not setting the world on fire, right? We're collecting toys. And we're using that to manage stress or anxieties or depression or to have a positive outlook or do something that's more focused and positive for the week.
Absolutely.
With that in mind, we're going to go into pull it up, the questions. So, one of the things that as adults we forget to do is we forget to play. Oh my goodness. Hang on. I will be right back. Apparently,
Okay.
my has decided to bang the shit out of his door.
Okay. Well, I'll just hold court here then. I can't see the chat, so I don't know if anyone is here. Let me just have a quick look. Hang on, I'll just minimize this window. Carol, Zazel, hello.
All right, we're back. Okay,
We're
my
back.
wife got it. She was in the bathroom, so that was why I was getting all the banging.
Yeah,
I
was
he's
just looking
hearing all
at the
the
chat to
noise,
see who
so
was here.
yeah, exactly.
All good.
So
All good.
let's say hi to the chat, just since we're here. Zazel is here, and Nolan is here, and Carol is here, and Wraith Mace is here, and who else? Who else? John, Emerald Night Photos is here, and I guess that's everybody. So hey, everybody, saying hi to everybody. What? Oh, Ray Black shows up. There we are. Oh, Dustman's there. See, they're trickling in now. They're trickling in.
They're trickling in.
So, one of the things that we forget to do as adults is we forget to play. There's a critical aspect to our health and mental health overall that old adage of all work and no play makes so and so a dull boy. It does.
Yeah.
We're designed to have that relaxation moment. So for the purposes here, I'm going to describe what a play state is. It's a state of mind where one is absorbed in activity, where there is enjoyment and there's a loss of the sense of time. You're not focused on time. You're not focused on this has to be here and there. You lose focus. Just playing, just being in the moment. Athletes would call that flow. You're in the flow.
Yep.
So for you, given that definition, when was the last time you played?
Oh, good question. I was up here in this room the other day, which is the man cave, and I was putting a whole bunch of classifieds on display in a cabinet that you far one over there. You can see them on the top shelf. And I posed about 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's probably about 11 or 12 figures in the top cabinet, and they're all Joes. And I moved on to the second shelf of the display, and I set up another, like probably a bit less of Joes, of the secondary guys like Outback, and I've got Kamakura in there, Big Ben, and Nunchuck. Sergeant
Now
Slaughter.
I'll buy it on the Nunchuck and the Kamakura, but Outback is not a secondary. Sorry.
I know, but the top line. So okay, so I'll go back. So the top shelf is more like the original characters. So I've got Stalker, Snake Eyes, Rock and Roll,
I know.
Grunt.
The OG 13.
Yeah, and I've got Spirit up there as well and Beachhead because we obviously don't have those other characters to fill out that
Not yet.
13 yet. So I was just messing around with that. So that's technically the last time I played. I was clearing because all my classifieds were on the deck of the flag here. Humble brag, just to throw that in there. And I wanted to clear them all out because I just got these cabinets recently. I got 4 of them because I had 2. So I've put another. I've still got to build one, but there's 3 that I've just built. So you can see the top shelf there. Yeah. Above my head, there's a tower thing.
Yeah.
Which is one of those Z-Bob toys, third-party sort of things, which I've got there. And I've got piece. Yeah, I'm just going to use the top of the details for a full-scale like battlefield dio, which I'm piecing together bit by bit. So that's the last time I played.
Okay. Well, I'm going to show you the last time I played. So this is going to be a little bit. Hopefully, I can find it. Oh, I apparently closed it out, so I got to open it back up. Oop. No, no, come back. All right. Good gravy. All right. There we go. So this is the dio that I've been working on. This is basically one side dry fit foam. Started cutting it down. This is the other side, foamed up, glued together. This is the back
Very cool.
side where I started carving out the back and kind of making some steps and some other stuff to make it a little more, friendly, and carving out the inside a little bit more so I can fit more people inside.
Yep.
So you can see a little better there. This is today where I primed it. Ugh. Can't tell you how bad my garage smells right now. So I got those primed. I got the base primed. And
Very cool.
that's what I did today. That's how I played today. I got a
Nice.
little bit lost in it, but you know what? Tomorrow I will pull out the oh my giddy aunt. My brain just went whoop. Nope. You're not gonna remember what that word is.
It happens.
Holy garbage. Wow, that's bad. Wow, I have gotten old. Apparently my brain just does not want to function right now.
The
No,
diet
no,
was
no, no. It's my good gravy. I'll remember later. That's
it's
what'll
fine.
happen. It'll come to me like 30 minutes from now. It'll be like, oh, that's what I said. But no, tomorrow will be a base coat where I'll change it to like it'll be a lighter because it's gonna end up being like orangey, yellowy, white,
Okay.
kind of like a desert kind of look,
Nice.
like Arizona, New Mexico kind of desert-ish look.
Cool. And is it 2 stories? Like the bunker is sitting on top and then there's a bottom level, is that right?
It's just modular, so I can pop it out.
Okay.
So I'm
Cool.
the basically it's going to be a lot of it's basically a kill box where
Yep.
my his tank is going to be in that center, and
Okay.
I've got 2 sets of that 788 team coming in, so
Oh,
they're going to
nice.
be flanking the side of the his tank, and then in the Cobra bunker there's going to be 3 Cobras or 3 Joes with Cobra helmets on their heads, making them think it's So it'll be I have this whole thing, and then behind this his tank in the sky is gonna be a Trouble Bubble and Serpentor.
Cool.
So I've got
Cool.
it all kind of worked out in my head. Hopefully it's all gonna fit.
Yep.
If I have to move things up and down, I will, but I know that will fit. And I had to make it
Yep.
modular so that I could get it in there easy and
Yep.
pop it off easy. So but yeah, eventually there's going to be Joes on one side and Cobras on the other, and there's going to be firing at each other and down. So it's
Yep.
kind of like your DTOF thing, but
I was just
in a
about to
more
say.
compact area
Yep. Because that's
because
that's
it's
exactly why I've done that, is because when I get the his tank, I wanted for like room for it to be displayed in a
yeah
good way, not just sitting on a shelf. You know what I mean? And so that's where I come up with the idea for that, because I thought, if I can have that, because I've also got the dragonfly as well. So,
yeah
I need that room. I need a bit of space. So
yeah
that's exactly why I did it. I don't have
yeah
the craftsman skills to do what you've done, but I'll just put bits and pieces together from like gridiron and like that
yeah.
tower and stuff like that from other places and just make that a scene. So yeah.
Well, I don't know if they have these things in Amazon. I don't think you guys have Amazon, do you? But they have
Yeah, we do.
backdrops. You guys do?
Yeah.
There's a AWORT backdrops. Basically, they're big, they're fabric, but they have
Okay.
imagery on the back,
Oh, cool.
and you can attach them to like I've got them in with my forest dio. I'll actually
Okay.
I think I've got pictures of my forest
I
dio.
haven't seen those.
Let me show you what it kind of looks like. Let me No, that is not what I want. Where is it? I know I've got one somewhere where you can see one. All right, let's pull this up. Show you this. Show you how this works. So this is a smaller one that I don't use, but it's one that I have. This is the only one ever. But this is like how this works. As you can see, it's just basically I glued it to foam board, and it can
Okay.
sit in the back of the thing, and you can make it look, and you can put it behind your detolf. You just have to attach it to the wall.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
But they come in. There's like 4872
Okay,
is as big as they come, I think.
right.
But still, that's monstrous.
Yeah, that's cool. Because it's funny you should say that. Because obviously, with the wall being white, like I put some thought into like how can I alter that, and something like that is what I ideally was looking for. So, and I'd found something on Amazon, but they were just small ones. I think like to go inside details, so they weren't big enough for that sort of
Yeah,
span.
no, the ones I found, they're called the company is Awert, AWERT. I'll send you a link and let you.
Yeah,
I
that'd
don't
be
know if
great.
they
Thank
have
you.
them. I don't know if they'll have them there or not, but yeah,
Now,
they're
well, the good
nice.
thing about Amazon here is like we have Amazon Australia, but we can also get stuff from Amazon US as well. So it
Okay.
works well.
All right. Well, I'll send you the link, and
That'd be great. Thank you.
yeah, they're fantastic. I've got them for all of my little dio sections. I just haven't. I bought one that's like a ocean for my. I'm gonna end up with having boats in a dio sec, but I gotta get a new.
Okay.
I have to get the new shelving first, but I have these all planned out in my head what I want and
Yeah,
how I want to do it.
that's
So
how it works,
it's
man.
I'm trying to do something different where I want to do like environmental displays.
Yep.
So I want to do a snow one, I want to do an ocean one or a water one. So I've got
Yep.
it all kind of worked out in my head. It's just a matter of getting the space to do it. And then of course Mindbender's lair. I've got a whole dio made up in my head for him. And then
Cool.
I want to do like a underground sewer, um, basically hunting ground. Throw in some tunnel rats and some other
Croc Master.
folks having go slog through the sewer.
Yeah, that's cool.
So when you were a kid, when you played,
Hmm.
how did you play? What were the ways that you played? Did it
Well,
matter about scale? Did everything play together? Was there this is the rules? There's nothing else that's going to happen.
so I'm an only child, so um, I have a pretty vivid imagination, I think, as a result of that. And as a kid, um, with my action figure lines, like I started off with Star Wars, like most people, and then moved on to Motu. I still kept collecting Star Wars, and then the Joes came along. I never mixed those worlds. I'd play in Eternia, so to speak, or in Hoth, so to speak, and then with the Joes, wherever. My lounge room, I had a beanbag. It was like tan color. I'd turn that thing into a mountain. You know what I mean? And like it would be fortified. So with whoever was, running it. So that's how I've always operated. Um, and yeah, like I can vividly remember sitting on my lounge room floor just playing Joes, and I'd be perching low light up high somewhere. Maybe on a chair of an arm, or sorry, arm of a chair or something like that. And yeah, that's how I rolled. But I'd also like my cousins who are just a bit younger than me. They didn't live far, so they were also action figure collectors. So we'd often uh, catch up at my house or theirs, and they'd bring all their stuff, or I'd bring my stuff. And as kids, we didn't go without. Like we were well looked after, like by our parents. Back in the '80s, where buying these things were a lot cheaper.
Oh yeah.
Um, and they had a playroom at their house. I never had a playroom, but where all their toys were, and I can remember, we'd be in there having
Mm.
big Joe battles. Like we'd be using like pieces of string to create like,
See, but you have to think about it, they had a playroom, you had a
yeah,
playhouse. See, there's
yeah.
a distinction there because if they couldn't play anywhere outside of that room, I bet,
Oh no,
unless it was
they could
outside.
play outside the room, but like the room was just where they housed all their toys because at that stage they shared a bedroom. They had bunks, so um, yeah, I think it was just because they had a lot of stuff like between the two of them. One Christmas I remember my cousin Edge, he got the tomahawk, and his brother Mark got the hydrofoil, and you know they weren't commonly found here in toy stores. Like uh, my uncle who bought them for them, he had to go like 3 suburbs away to a toy shop that had a stock of so much Joe stuff. And that's kind of how it was. Like you can still find these vehicles here and there, but there were some places that were just more plentiful. And yeah,
Mm.
I'll never forget that. Like, you know, seeing those vehicles for the first time, I was just like, I was in awe because I can't even remember what I got that Christmas. It paled in comparison, obviously, to what they got. Um, but yeah, so we played together. We play in the backyard with our Joes. My cousin still to this day talks about losing Lieutenant Falcon. I think he had him in a parachute pack and he got lost on the roof or something like that. And yeah, good times, fond memories.
Yeah, you know what? When we were kids, we definitely played a lot. So, in thinking about that, can you remember how playing made you feel?
Oh, look, man, like it was like a whole nother world, I guess, because like you go to school, you play with your mates and stuff like that. And back then, you'd be able to take some toys to school, but you'd be also mindful of not losing stuff and things like that. And I was a sort of kid because I didn't have any siblings to destroy stuff. I looked after all my toys. I wasn't destructive. I wasn't careless. And going through to my teen years, I still had like a lot of my childhood collection. Um, and that was Joe's and Star Wars primarily. I'd sold off a lot of the other stuff over time to focus on those two brands. Um, but yeah, like a monumental time to be a kid, and yeah, I would just be like, I'd come home from school, and I'd be in the lounge room watching like some afternoon television, and yeah, I'd just be playing with my Joes, man. Like that's
So,
that's that's like I can remember.
is there anything that you do now that kind of brings you back to that same kind of feeling?
Well, just collecting the classified line, I think definitely it is full on nostalgia. Because I stopped collecting Joes in in my teen years, and that's when, you know, I turned a little bit destructive with the help of one of my friends. Just being bored and living in the country and getting out of toys and stuff. My interest had shifted. So when you live in the country, there's not a lot to do as a teenager. So, and I was a young teenager because I moved there when I was like in the third year of high school. So still had all this stuff, but boredom kicked in, and we'd be blowing things up with soda bombs and like you know all sorts of silliness, which I regret now. Um, but yeah, that's where it was at.
Yeah. So, you kind of mentioned you had, Star Wars, which we all kind of did. Anybody that was born in the early '80s, you pretty much guaranteed you either got new Star Wars or you got hand-me-down Star Wars figures. There was just something about that, that whole 3.75-inch, revolution to save money, really. At the end of the day, that's what that was more about for the companies. It saved them money and made the toys less expensive. But you
Yep.
talked about Motu and you kind of talked about Joe's. Any other childhood toy lines?
I got into Mask a little bit. I had
Okay.
the black tanker. That was the biggest Mask vehicle I had,
Mhm.
and I had the Condor. That was the smallest one. Um, I definitely had another Jeep or something, but I can't remember what it was for the life of me right now. But I didn't have a lot of that. What else did I have? I had like some Marvel stuff, because I was a comic book collector as well, and still am
Yeah.
somewhat. So I had Marvel figures and stuff, like the first Toy Biz sort of figures that came
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
What else? I went through like, different iterations of action figure collecting. But those three brands, the big three, were the ones that Transformers. I had Transformers as well. I had quite a fair few Transformers. Like I had the G1 Jetfire. Um, I had like one of the first Transformers I bought with my own money was Grimlock, and I put him on what you guys would call layaway. And this was a new concept to me as a kid that was introduced to me, because like I wanted this toy, but my stepmom was like, "Well, you don't have the money," and she's like, "But what you can do is, there he is, nice.
This is the
You can
core
just chip
class.
away at it. Yep, yeah, you can just chip away at it for over 4 weeks, and then you get it." I'm like, "This is great." So every week, I'd go in there with my pocket money, boom, drop it down, and then when the 4 weeks came, I got him. So he's probably one of my most like cherished Transformer like memories. But yeah, I had bits and pieces from that line, but again, they were all moved on over time, because I would go to like what we would call a trash and treasure market, which you would, I guess, call like a swap meet or something like that, and I'd sell off stuff like Lego. I had a lot of Lego as a kid, so when I grew out of that, I sold that off and I funneled that money into Star Wars stuff. So I was playing with my toys from a young age, but then I also developed this collector's mindset too, as I got older, like and before my teens. So I knew that there was value in Star Wars figures. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I didn't know they would become what they've become today, obviously, but I had a lot of Star Wars stuff, like a lot, and I just kept it in top notch condition. And then up until I was about 16, and I was living in the country, and I'd just grown out of it. And a friend of mine, the same one who I was being destructive with my toys with, he was a bit of a scallywag, so to speak, and he got into a bit of trouble, which I was partly involved in. And as a result, he had to pay back some money. And so I said I'd help him, and I sold off all my Star Wars stuff to a guy for like, I feel like it was like between $300 and $600. I can't even remember the exact figure.
Well,
And
that's
this
that's
was,
better. That's better than my ex-wife got for my entire GI Joe collection.
oh, I've heard that story.
Oh my god,
Yeah, man.
that's bad.
That was
Hey, at least
bad.
you got.
I felt
But
you the first time I heard that.
yeah, no, I sold my Star Wars my vintage and my Power of the Force Star Wars collection last year April, so it's been
Yep.
about a year, year and 5 months. I I got a decent amount of money for it. It was like 2,500, so it
Nice.
wasn't a small amount. A
Mm,
lot of my vintage figures, they were pristine. I honestly, if I really wanted to gouge somebody, I would have sent them off to get graded before I
yeah.
sold them. But
Yeah.
at the time, I didn't need them. They had a lot of mixed feelings for me.
And I can so relate to that, because like I got back into the Star Wars collecting obviously when the prequel films came out, and they brought out the figures
Yeah,
then, and I got back into it in a big way. But it didn't hold the same feeling that the vintage stuff did for me. And over time, I stopped collecting, because you know how they started to pump out that
oh
stuff
yeah,
like
no,
over the
it's
years. Became ridiculous in terms of trying to collect that stuff, and I just dropped out of collecting toys. So, and yeah, it was somewhat easy for me to let a lot of that stuff go. But my dad and my stepmom, at some point, they knew that I was getting rid of this stuff, and my dad, being a wise man that he was, he's like, "Well, what we'll do is we'll buy some of this stuff from you," because he thought, like, I don't think that you should just get rid of it.
yeah,
I'm like, okay. So they bought it from me, and they boxed it up, and they moved house a fair few times, like after that fact, and they kept it all these years later. And my dad passed away 10 years ago, and so my stepmom lives not far from where I live, and she had all his worldly belongings and stuff over the course of their life, and we had to do like a clean out of the garage where she lives, because she lives in a little unit. And she's like, I've just got too much of this stuff. It's like the garage is just like full of all sorts of stuff. Because my dad, he was a musician, and he was also he used to work in the caravan industry, so he's like a salesman and whatnot. And he was a collector in a lot of ways, like not of like toys or anything like that, but he collected, music-based stuff, and like he had a lot of amplifiers, and he was a guitarist, so he had guitars, and but he also collected odds and ends, just little things. Like he had a lot of tools and all sorts of stuff. So when we cleaned out the garage, found the box, I couldn't believe it. Like, so I'd completely forgotten about it, but my stepmom had it. And she's like, "Yeah, like we've still got this." I'm like, "Yo, wow, you're kidding me!" So like opening up that box, it was all like Phantom Menace era figures, as well as some other pieces. Like I've got one right here. This was in there.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
a 2-pack that we sold at Toys R Us here, and it's Obi-Wan and Anakin from Attack of the Clones. So I kept that, like I pulled that out, and there's a few other bits and pieces that I pulled out and kept. But my stepmom was like, "Well, look, if you're not collecting this anymore, like, I'd like to sell it and sort of like recoup some of the money." I said, "Yeah, that's fine." Like she said, what we'll do is like we'll just go halves in what we get from it. So she's like, "If you're happy to go and sell it, you take your cut and give me the rest." I was like, "Done." So
that's kind of what we do as collectors, though. At some point, we do have to part with parts of our collection, because
absolutely
space is always going to be a concern. I mean, there's no house that I know of that has infinite space. So it eventually you have to kind of start curating that collection down to the things that mean the most. At least you hope, right? Because that thing that means the most now, could mean less later.
Yep. And I'm very much like that.
Yeah. So speaking of what we're collecting, gotta find, hang on, where did it go? What did you pick up this week?
Oh, it's been a quiet week. I'm still waiting on some stuff to come from the US. I'm still waiting on some stuff to come from Taiwan. So yeah, I've only had one thing arrive this week.
Well, I went out and got these on clearance. I pulled 2. I already have 3, but more than likely this is going to be custom fodder.
Okay.
But at that price for $12 or $11.79, I can't pass it up.
No.
I got Battle Armor He-Man.
Nice.
He was unpunched, mind you, but the person at Target punched the thing. When I had them do a price correction because it scanned something else. And then when I went up to pay for it, it did a different price. And Battle Armor Skeletor. So nice. I didn't have them. I'm not doing a whole lot of Origins, but when they're a good price, I don't mind it. And those were my kind of favorite versions of Skeletor and He-Man back in the day, just because the stupid little whack them and it changed kind of thing. It's still there's something about that tactile kind of play feature thing. I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah, the motive
in my advanced age, I've gotten that way. But now that we've kind of talked about current stuff, we're going to go through your collection and we can talk about some of the things that excite you or some of the things that make you happy or what is about the stuff. Now, you only sent me your Joe stuff, so we're going to assume. Now, I see you have a couple Collector Club ones. I'm not sure who those are.
Mm-hmm. Yep, 10 Grunt and 10 Clutch.
Okay.
Yep.
And this is all modern, so this is all stuff from
25th era. Yep.
25th and forward.
Yep. So that top shelf is the OG 13 figures.
Okay.
As with you said, the club figures over there at the
Yeah.
back. Yeah, like getting that assembled over time was a goal of mine, and because there's a couple of figures in there that were kind of hard to get, like Short Fuse. Who else was there? I think Zap as well. And
I would
yeah, that
imagine the
might.
collector club ones would have been the most difficult.
I got those for
But
pretty good prices, actually. Yeah,
hmm,
they weren't too hard. And then yeah, you got the second shelf of that cabinet, and this is all like 83 to 84
yeah.
deep
Now,
six.
the Deep Six, where did that come from? Is that did they
That's the
have
one
that
that
with the
comes with
25th?
the modern shark. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
where
I
he's got
honestly hadn't seen it. That's why I
yeah, he's
was
actually
curious.
got articulated arms, unlike the original vintage figure.
You know what? The original vintage figure, if you had the thing and you put it in the water, it was great. But once you took
So
it out
fun
of the water,
story.
not so much fun.
Yeah, fun story about that one. I've mentioned this before, I think on Lawrence's show when I was on there, but Deep Six was the first official Joe figure that I owned as a kid. And that was purchased at Circus Casino in Las Vegas in 1985 when my family, my dad and I and my stepmom went to America. And my dad bought that for me. So that figure and that vehicle hold like a special place in my heart.
Yeah. Oh,
'Cause
I've always
prior,
loved Shark. Shark was cool.
yeah, and prior to that, technically my first Joe was an action man, and that was Short Fuse, and I got him just on a whim as a kid, and he was the only action man that I had um, up until '85 when I got Deep Six. So I had, and I also got the Skyhawk on that same trip in America, and so I had the Skyhawk, Deep Six, the Shark, and Zap. Sorry, Short Fuse, and that was it. That's all I had up until the line of GI Joe actually kicked off here in '86, and
Yeah.
then it was on, and my collecting just went.
And here's some more 25th, and this is Dreadnoks and Crimson
Yep,
Guard, and they.
yep. So this is the '85 run,
Okay.
which is complete as well. Got a few
Yeah.
heavy hitters in there, like the Footloose figure and the Lamprey. That's a pricey one. Alpine and
And that's
with
Stardusters.
Starduster, yeah. And with these, and this goes through from the top to bottom, I've tried to get them as close to the original vintage figures in terms of their accessories, because with the 25th line, some of those things were
Yeah.
spot on, some of those things were changed. So, for instance, the Televiper that you see at the back, he's actually got a vintage backpack that's been modified to fit modern figures because he didn't come with any accessories. So he's got the
Yeah.
original vintage gun, vintage backpack. So that's a
Yeah.
good example.
When I was looking, he's a pricey figure too because he came in that multi-pack.
Yep. Yeah.
But I went ahead and I got a vintage one and got the vintage backpack and everything and just left it.
Yep.
They're
He
all
looked so naked
carded
with
on
no
my wall.
accessories. He needed it.
They're all carded on my wall, so
Nice.
they're not getting out to play. And that Sarge figure's extremely difficult to get.
Pricey one. It cost me a pretty penny a few months back. I've been chasing it for a while, and it come up in an auction, a Facebook auction here, and I was like, yeah, I'll grab it. So
no, some of these are Pursuit of Cobra, right? Because that Sci-Fi and that
yep,
Lifeline, I think, are Pursuit of Cobra.
yep. But again, these fit into the '86 line. So
Oh yeah.
again, I've assembled that all together. I don't have the other Sarge, which would be nice, but
Yeah.
that's pretty much complete there. The Iceberg was a pricey figure as well.
Yeah, there's some some of those 25th, those anniversary 50th Pursuit of Cobra figures. Because I think I paid I want to say I paid $70 for my Lifeline
Yeah,
and
fair call.
50
I
for my
actually got
sci-fi.
that from retail when it came out.
So,
Quick note before you go to the next image. That leatherneck there, if he's still here in the chat, I actually swapped that with Zazel.
oh, cool.
Yeah. So he had that kicking around, and what did I swap with him? I feel like it was like a Pit Commander Hawk or something, and with the coffee cup, like the pit, the Pit Hawk.
Yeah.
I think it was that. If he's still here, he might be able to refresh my memory. But yeah, so that was one that I'd been chasing for ages and couldn't get, and Zazel had him, so that was perfect.
And here's your
Moving on to
steel battalion. Isn't that correct that they called it that time? Oop, go back. Go back.
the old Steel
Steel
Brigade.
battalion. And then your renegades and some more dreadnoughts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so
Razorblades.
you'll see a lot of empty spots here.
Yeah, I'm sure there's probably quite a few that I don't know how they didn't redo everything, I don't think, during that period.
Well, yeah, pretty much. Like, so the only reason there are empty spots there is because I haven't obviously got those figures, and a lot of them now are pricey because they were club figures, the figure subscription service ones, and to get them here, like back in the day, was very difficult. Obviously, being outside of America, and so yeah, I've just never gotten around to getting them, and now the prices on those, as you were mentioning before, some of them is just crazy money. And
yeah, I got a few of those Tiger Force convention ones. They tend to be fairly reasonable.
Yeah,
that's how I ended up with Psych Out, and I got a different version of Outback. I'm not sure what year, but I know it's before all of that. But it was another GI Joe exclusive convention, whatever you want to call it, GI Joe club figure.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, no, that's one of those things. This is like a labor of love still, and it's definitely taken a back seat since the classified line came along.
I can see how that would happen.
Yeah.
This is my favorite version of Cobra Commander, by the way, just so you know.
Same with me, mate. Yep. He's number one.
For whatever reason, there's just something really cool about him in battle armor. At least then he looks like he's competent. I mean, most of the time it's kind of confusing.
And the comic run made that even more so for me. Like, the whole storyline of how he got that armor and what happened to him. Like, I had that figure as a kid, loved it.
So this is more Pursuit of Cobra.
This is a mix. Yeah, this is a mix. So I've basically, from this point onwards with this shelf, it's a mix of my favorite characters from the later years, with some different iterations in there too. Obviously, if you go pan to the right, you've got the different Law and Order there, which I really love. It's a great figure, and it looks fantastic. And shout out to Kirk Bazigian, who I've spoken to before, absolute gentleman, who it's the figure is based on. But one of my other favorite figures in this assortment is the Quinn figure at the back. Yeah.
That one. Yeah.
Yep. Which came out in what was the second movie? Retaliation. Yeah.
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 There's a lot of figures that came out during that time that we're now kind of getting, like Helix. We're getting her.
She came out with the Cobra line. Yep. I really hope that Lenny and them do a Quinn figure in Classified. It'd be fantastic. And then you've got a couple of others like Shadow Tracker at the back. He's another fave.
And we got we got Shadow Tracker coming, and we got Shockwave coming. You got your Alley Viper. Got Hit and Run. That one and the Night Creeper just was announced. We need Blowtorch. I'm sorry, we need Blowtorch and Heat Viper, and then we're good.
Absolutely.
Like, we'll be happy with those two coming out.
I really want Dark
your OG 13, I guess. Was this what it was supposed to be originally? Because you got Rock.
Yeah, this is the top shelf that I was talking about before.
Okay.
So yeah, they're all just balancing. They're standing upright, and they're still standing upright, which is amazing. With no stands, but yeah, I just chucked them in there, and just just to set it up and just fill some space and clear off the deck of the flag, which was just a holding zone for all my classifiers, and it's currently still littered with probably 20 or so classified loose army builders. They're all mainly Cobras. So yeah.
So you're saying your flag is a storage area?
Oh, it's the greatest like table for a collector like in the history of tables. Like, I do a lot of good work on this flag. It's where all my reviews are filmed.
There you go. Now here's
And
that
yeah,
little dio piece that you mentioned.
yep, yep. So that's the Z Bob toys. Whatchamacallit? What's I was just drawing a blank. What's the name of it? Gone. There you go. It's my turn for a brain fart. But yeah, it's a good piece. It's probably very much overpriced for what it is, but it is sturdy. It's made of metal, and the whatchamacallit, the wall, the brick wall is like is stone, and like you got the real sort of wire, the barbed wire and stuff like that, and the gate opens and closes. It's a nice little piece. It's good for displaying stuff. But it sits on that base plate that it comes with, and then you've got the three 3D printed blockades, for lack of a better word, which Lenny Frostbite's G.I. Joe Repro made for me, and he painted those and put all the bullet holes and the weathering on them. So yeah, they just sit in front of that.
That's good.
And you've got a rogues gallery of Cobras in here.
I see that. I was kind of wondering what the theme was, because you got Scrap Iron basically back here in the back.
Yep.
You would think you'd want him out front since he's got the missile launching.
Well, it's funny you should say that, because off camera is the drone, and what he's doing, you can't see it, but what he's doing hiding behind that wall, he's actually got the pad in his hands. And he's concealed. So like he's controlling that. He doesn't have to be in harm's way. So that's why he's there. I just put these other guys up. They're not in like proper pose position or anything. They're just standing there because, again, I was just clearing them off, and I wanted to see how they would look and whatnot. But yeah, they're placeholders at the moment until I get more stuff for the top of the cabinet display. So
yeah, I was looking today and I saw this thing from Fext Hobby. It's basically an X-Men Danger Room. It was $140, so it wasn't crazy, but it's modular. It's kind of like Lego.
Yep.
So you can adjust it and move it around. I was like, that would work really great. That setup would work really great for my G.I. Joe garage that I have planned.
Nice.
So I plan to have the pit kind of and put in some other stuff and do some dio pieces that I've made.
Cool.
Go into the pit area. So it's tempting me, but I'm like, I'll wait. I'm sure it'll be available at some point later. All right, so here's your what you called. What were these again? What was the word you used?
I think I just called like the second tier characters or something like that. Yeah.
And you have Bazooka on the second tier and Big Ben and Tunnel. Ooh, didn't fight. Ooh. Now I'm the back line I might buy because I'm not the huge ninja person, but
Yep.
The rest of them are ballers. You got Sarge, you got Outback, you got Tunnel Rat, you got Big Ben. Oh.
Yep. Again, these were just put in there and basically to get them out of the way. In no way is this set in stone. Like, I'll change this around over time and whatnot. But
5 seconds after the show's over, you're gonna go in there and start moving them around.
Well, the thing is, like, after I set them up, I left the room and I don't know what happened. And I come back in the next day, and that whole shelf had just like fallen over like bowling pins, and so they're all still like just gone, and they're all laying flat. The only one standing is Nunchuck, and he's at the back. But I've got to fix that up because that's annoying. I walked in, I was like, oh god damn it! You know what I really need? I want those Hexa stack things that
he's working
Travis
on it.
is doing.
He's working on it. Travis will be putting them out at some point. I think sometime in October is when he's going live on a website. So
can't wait.
obviously, I'm gonna take a stab. Snake
Hmm.
Eyes is your favorite character?
He
Because that's
does
a
hold a
heck of a
special
lot of
place in my
Snake Eyes for somebody if you don't like him.
so
Just saying.
no, you're not wrong. Like he's a massive fan favorite. It's and there's probably a lot of people who also have Snake Eyes fatigue, but for me, the mysterious nature of his storyline in the comics is what really gravitated me towards him. And I like ninjas. He's a commando. I like commandos. Like he's just the coolest hybrid of two different specialties. He's in black. Like there's a lot to love. And originally, one of my first detox was fully dedicated to him, and it still is the case now. But there's a lot of stuff that I can't really fit in there without jamming it up because I've got a lot of carded stuff and box stuff. So
Mhm.
when I've got the other cabinets in, I've sort of altered this display, and you'll see obviously a bit more in a minute. But there you go. There's a bit more. And I'm still tweaking it. There's still a lot of stuff to go in there, but yeah, that's a work in progress as well.
Well, I find it fitting you have the Larry Hama figure right in the center.
Had to. So he's mainly been standing on the bridge of the flag, um, but I took him off and put him in there. I thought it's a good fit just to pop him in there. Excuse me, and yeah, like it, I've got a lot of love for Snake Eyes.
Apparently.
Hmm. Yep. So where my computer's sitting right now, it's actually sitting on two toy tubs. And one of these toy tubs is dedicated to him. It's just full of Snake Eyes figures. Yeah.
And this is more
Yeah,
Snake
there's some
Eyes.
more.
And that's a lot
I'm
of
not a
shells. That's a lot of
what,
Snake
sorry?
Eyes. I just saying,
Yeah,
that's
there's
a
a lot
lot of
more.
Snake Eyes.
Yeah. Well, he's got like the most figures of the line. Like,
Of course he does. He has like
yeah,
83
yeah,
variants and 25 different country variants.
crazy amount. And I'm
Whatever the
not a,
number is. I know it's absurd. There's
it's
412 Snake
ridiculous.
Eyes. Ugh.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And I'm not a completionist by any sense. Like, I just buy the figures of his that I like.
Yeah. So, and you can see why I put that in the thumbnail. And then Snake Eyes stabbed me.
Yeah.
So,
Well, like, look where my name comes from. It comes from that character. Like, and obviously that iconic panel from the comic where he's riding the shark and stabbing it.
hmm
So, and when I created like my Instagram like toy account, I was like, what am I going to use as my name? And I was just like, what am I going to use for my avatar? And so I was just like, yeah, this is a fun pick. I like this. It's iconic. And then I was like, Snake Eyes. I was like, all right, shark. I like sharks. Like I actually have a tattoo of a shark. Like I've always liked sharks. So it just fit,
But
and that's where
yeah.
it's just a pound
So,
words.
any of the childhood toy lines that are you collecting any of them? Or are you still trying to get any of those figures?
Like the vintage stuff.
Yeah. Anything from your vintage childhood that you collected that you would want to go back and get that you haven't yet?
Yeah, so I did go back and collect a fair amount of the vintage Joes like years ago, but again, it was kind of like the Star Wars thing, whereas like I had them as a kid and I loved them, but because I got rid of them as a kid, collecting them again just didn't feel the same, and that's why when the 25th line came out, I was like, boom, modern, more articulation, they're bigger, a little bit bigger. The sculpts are great. Like they've got this and that. A lot of them can't hold their freaking weapons, but whatever. It's a small gripe, but that's where I focused my attention on. And there's still a lot of vintage Joe collectors here in Australia, and they buy that stuff in abundance. And I just was like, well, I'm not going to do that. Like I'm just going to focus on what Hasbro's doing now. And so with that said, I sold off a lot of the vintage stuff again, but then I kept the characters that I really liked. And so I kind of applied the Marie Kondo, like, does this thing bring you joy if you pick it up? And if it does, I keep it. And I apply this to all my collecting. And if it doesn't, I sell it because I just don't want to have stuff for the sake of having stuff.
Did you see the statement? It's right there for a reason. You know.
Yeah, yeah, it's spot on, man. It's spot on. And thank you, Happy Accident. I appreciate that, buddy. Yeah, and so like that's how as I've evolved as a collector, and at the same time, it's always how I've sort of been. Like if I look at the timeline of me as a kid, like I'd get stuff, I'd keep stuff, I'd sell stuff, I'd funnel that into buying more stuff that I like, and that's just how it worked. Because, like you said before, Aaron, like you only have X amount of space, and like
Yeah.
even though this room is big and it's big enough to have a flag in the middle of the room where I can walk around it and you see the cabinets and there's 6 of those and like it's a big room, at the same time it still is got a lot of stuff in it. And
Yeah.
you know, you don't ever want to have that feeling of the stuff closing in. Like that to me is like borderline hoarding. And I also don't believe in just having a whole bunch of stuff for the sake of having stuff. Like I get why people are completionists, I can understand it, and I get why people are army builders, I can understand it because I do a little bit of that like yourself, but I keep it minimal. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I
And
don't need
that's how I
25 of
roll.
the figure. That would make me insane. I have enough issues trying to fit 3 to 5 now. So it's
Right?
I don't
Yeah.
get it. That
Yeah.
doesn't do anything for me. That would literally make me feel like claustrophobic if I had that much.
Yeah. And it's like,
So,
you know, especially when you look at the price point of the classified line, I'm just looking at my deck and I'm just counting. So the most army builders of the classified figures that I have are bats. And I love the bats. And
yeah.
that's the original colorway, none of the other ones. So I've got one, hang on, just go look. 1, 2, 3, 4. I've got 6 or 7 of those. You know, and that's more than I would normally collect of any army builder because I try to stick to like four-man units. So
Yeah.
you know, but with those, they're kind of like cannon fodder, and I kind of feel like they just Cobra just throws them out there. You know
No,
what I
they
mean?
do.
So,
They're perfect for that.
yep.
So, I mean, I think honestly with even with the color variations, I would say my just straight the first ones I have 3 that are built going to be customs. I
Hmm.
have probably 6 in the display,
Yep.
and I have another one in a box. So the
Gotcha.
first 50 figures, I have 2 of each, with the exception of 00 Snake Eyes and Regal Cobra Commander.
I can relate to that as well, mate, because like
So
one of my main collecting goals with the classified line that evolved along the way as more figures started coming out was like, I'm going to get the first 50 figures in box and I'll get the loose ones that I want, but I'm not going to get a loose one of everyone. So, for instance, you know, what's a good example in that run? I think the Python Patrol bat, for instance. Like,
yeah,
I've got the one box one. I don't do Python Patrol and I don't do Tiger Force. Like, I've got zero attachment to those sub teams, so it's an easy way for me to not have to spend that money on
yeah,
those as well. And I just don't feel like I need them because it does boil down to need and want. Like we don't. These are toys. We don't need them to survive.
no,
It's not like we need them to breathe. Like you know what I mean. But um, there are certainly, and I try to apply that approach of like want over need. You know what I mean? Like I
mm,
want this, but I don't need it. So
yeah,
yeah, that's how I operate. I hit that 50, and that's it. I was like, I'm not going to try and get the next 50. I'm done. Like I hit that goal, tick. And they're all sitting here off camera, like at the moment on another tub of toys because while I've been working on this side of the room, this side of the room has had to be a storage area, a bit in
yeah.
limbo at the moment because it's
Isn't
like I
that
can
how that
only
works though? You work on one side. You got to work on one area at a time and move forward, and that's kind of how that
correct.
works
Yep,
until
exactly.
you get it where you want, and then of course something changes, and you're like, yeah, I got to do it again. Let's start back
Yep,
over. I wasn't happy with
exactly.
it. So, are there any things outside of established franchises that you collect for toys?
Well, I was a pop vinyl collector. As you can see, a couple of those above my head
Yeah.
here, up here. And that was something that sort of fell into my lap. I got given one for a Christmas present one year. I was like, what is this thing? Like, I don't know anything about these things. It was Axl Rose. And it was a gift given to me. Like, I like Guns N' Roses, but I don't love them. And it was given to me like, I think it's just a funsy sort of present. I'm like, okay, now that I've got one of these things, let me do a bit more homework. So I did my homework. I was like, okay, these are like highly collectible. I've obviously seen them everywhere in shops.
Yeah.
But I wasn't thinking that people were like really buying them, you know what I mean? Other than just like a novelty. And then I was like, okay, these things, some of them have value. So, then I was like, okay, well, I've got one. Then one became two, two became 10, 10 became 30, 30 became 50, and so on until like I have like over 100 of the damn things. But I've really tailed off on them because it was almost like an obsession. It was like I'm buying these like because it's the disease of more. I call it the disease of more. Like, you want more, but you don't need them. Like, and so
So
I
in some cases
really,
you were buying to buy.
yeah, like I'd buy like for instance when Avengers like Infinity War and stuff like that. I was like, wow, there's a huge Thanos. There's two huge Thanoses. I want both of those. So you know what I mean. So I got a lot of the Avengers ones, and they're all sitting over here. And I've got a few basketball ones because I'm into the NBA. So I've got like a lot of Michael Jordan ones and stuff like that. But I've really stopped with those because they take up a lot of room. They don't do much other than just sit there. You can't pose them or anything.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot of dynamicness to a pop.
So I still have them. Like there's a couple of Tupac ones up there. Like I like them. Like I'm into rap, so like I got the DMX one as well. And but yeah, they're just sitting there now. They're kind of just taking up space. But so I don't really collect those, but I have them. I've recently I've had NECA stuff on and off over the years, bits and pieces. But I wanted to make one of the cabinets, not just Joe stuff, but like movie related stuff. So I started getting the Kill Bill NECA figures. And the top shelf, I've only got a few so far. I've got the Bride, I've got Go-Go, I've got the Bald Henchman, and I've got another cool one actually I got last week was there's a Quentin Tarantino in the Crazy 88 outfit, and he's got like the mask. And like I love Quentin Tarantino films, so I've now pretty much dedicated that top shelf to that line. And then the second shelf, I got a heap of the NECA Django figures that came out, and the ones that got deleted after the controversy surrounding them. So I've got Schultz, Steven, Candy, and Django. So they're sitting in there. And there's a few other bits and pieces. There's a RoboCop, some Pulp Fiction Super Sevens.
So it's not all G.I. Joe. There's a little more diversity there. So
like I'm a big movie file, so I
was going to ask you about independent toy lines. Is there any independent toy lines? Let's say like D20, or I know you have a little more access to some of this stuff that but you have less access to a lot of stuff like AWOC and Mythic Legions and Cosmic Legions, and I know those are almost impossible to find.
Very much so. I've seen them I've seen Mythic Legions here once, and that was at a swap meet a few weeks back. A guy had a whole table of them, and I was with a mate, and I was like, check these out, man. These figures are amazing, because I've obviously seen them online on YouTube. And I didn't buy anything because I'm like, I'm not going to buy it and start something new. You know what I mean? I'm not going to fall down that rabbit hole because classifieds are already.
Oh no, yeah. Once you start down the Mythic Legion, Cosmic Legions rabbit hole, it's a never-ending suck on your wallet. Joe's bad. Joe is getting bad right now though too. If you really think about it, I mean, if you look, I added it up. I think I talked about it the other day when I was on Toy Connections with Ken. And I was like, I added it up between now and December. It's like $1,300.
That's crazy, man. I really don't even.
I didn't go crazy. That's just getting basics. That's not going nuts.
Yeah. Like obviously, for the people watching, with the exchange rate here in Australia, Lawrence, um, a standard figure that would be what, $22 for classifieds for you. Is that about right?
Uh,
Like,
it really depends. Like the Walmart, I was there today, and they were at 21.88, and then
okay,
Target is 24.99. So
okay, yep.
there,
So
it
yeah,
varies for whatever
yep,
reason. Literally, the Target and Walmart that I went to,
yep,
you could spit in one parking lot and probably hit the other's parking lot pretty well. So they're fairly close to each other's,
yep,
and the fact that there's that much disparity, you're talking about, at least $3 worth of difference.
yeah.
But
Well,
this funny thing is the Walmart figures, they just sit.
crazy.
I don't I went in there today and I was like, "Oh, there's a whole bunch of this." But
Mm,
because Target had just clearanced out all of their, um, Joes for the most part, except for Dusty. Tiger Force
yep.
Dusty is still full price. He will sit there till the cows come home if they leave him at full price.
Just gathering dust.
Gathering dust,
And see,
collecting it, he's just holding on to it.
well,
The
and we
those
we touched
python
on this
yeah, these
backstage, like, about the availability of these figures. You
there was
know,
a peg and a half of these when I got these.
yep.
There was nothing the next morning.
There you go.
So,
And
I got hopped onto it at the basic good time.
yep.
So,
And see, at least you have that opportunity at your
yeah,
disposal to even go into a store, and a big chain store at that,
yeah,
and see these figures on a shelf. And I know that's not always the case because stuff does sell through, but for the folks watching, like, who don't know, like, here in Australia,
yeah, there's
our
nothing
mass
for this.
retail chain stores don't even stock the classified line.
Yeah,
Like, we have Zip. And to give you an idea of price point, like, if some of you, I don't know if you've heard of Pop Culture, Aaron. If you heard of Pop Culture,
yeah,
the big Australian store,
yeah.
so they have the classified figures. So to give you an example of pricing, like, they've got the first Alley Viper in their store, and I think when I looked at it last, it was $49.
Even with an
And how long
exchange
has
rate,
that
that's
figure? How long has
ridiculous.
that figure been out? Right? Yeah,
So, yeah, that's awful.
crazy, man. It's crazy.
Honestly, I think that would be insane to be an army builder in Australia.
Oh man, like,
I I I literally could not imagine having to pay. I would probably not buy as much as I do if they were more expensive. Once we get to that, if we get to that $35 price point consistently, I'm out.
yep. Well, I'll tell you right now, like, a perfect example of something that kicked me in the ass was, you know, I bought uh, 5 or 6 of the Crimson Guard, not the retro one, but the
The original,
normal
yeah.
box one, because I love that figure, and, like, I wanted a little battalion, so to speak, and I was paying 45, $50 for them, and then now I see that those Ollie stores that
Yeah,
are
4.99.
scattered throughout the
Yeah.
US, not in every state, but they're there, and they're selling for what, $5
Yeah,
or 4?
I have an Ollies, but that my Ollies for whatever reason they only get I was surprised that we finally got the motorboats because we
Mm-hmm.
only have one by me. There's three in the state, but I'm not driving 4 hours to get. That's not happening.
Yeah,
So, but
yeah,
yeah, no, it was. But they're also showing up at Ross stores too.
yep.
The Stalker Wave with the twins and
Mm-hmm.
the Stalker Wave is showing up at Ross for 5.99.
It's crazy. Like, that blows my mind. Like,
That just means that
over.
they were holding on to the stock, and I guarantee you it's coming from Walmart because Walmart was not moving Joe's at all. So they're selling
Crazy.
off that old stock rather than take the hit on the clearance end. So they're selling it from the warehouse, probably directly to Ollie's in bulk.
Amazing. And, like, Ollie's are selling them for that cheap and still making a dollar or two somehow. Like,
Oh yeah, no, no, they're making more than that probably. They're probably getting in
wow,
the 10 cents on the dollar, and somebody's getting a write off.
that's crazy,
That'll
mate.
be how that works. So
Crazy.
does the community, or is there anything in like interest wise or interest of others kind of have a way of influencing your interest in a given line or interests in something's longevity? Or is it just something internalized? Like, let's say they're, like your Snake Eyes collection.
Uh-huh.
Now, you would probably still collect Snake Eyes, I would imagine, even if no one else was collecting it.
Yeah, like, here's a good example, I guess. Again, like I said before, I just collect the ones that I like. I think he's just a cool figure, so that was easy. I guess I'm not really influenced per se by what others are doing. Like, I think for me, the Joe line just holds so much like nostalgia for me because I was into it in a big way, and I play with it a lot, and I have fond memories of it from my childhood. So there's definitely that mental connectivity. But I was a day one collector of classifieds. Like the first one I got was Snake Eyes, the first one, and I wanted that obviously for Snake Eyes purposes.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I didn't warm to the line immediately. I wasn't all in. Like it took me ages before I got like Scarlet and who else was there? Destro. I got Destro pretty early, but I still don't have Duke. Like I tell a lie. So in terms of collecting the first 50, I still don't have Duke. So I've got the Tiger Force
Oh, and
version,
he's
but
ridiculous. If you try to find him now, he's gonna be ridiculously priced.
yeah, like funnily enough, there's a big collectible store about 6 minutes drive from my house, and it's one of the probably the biggest like collectible toy store in the southern hemisphere. It's massive. It's called Lobos, and they have one sitting there, and it's $45, I think. And
Oh, that's not too
every
bad.
time I go in there, I'm like, oh, should I get it today? I'm like, oh, no, it'll still be here next time. And because I've got no like love for Duke as a character, like
Yeah.
none. He does zip for me. Like I pick up a Duke figure, I'm just like, you know what I mean? Because he was
Yeah.
never prominent in the comics, and the comics is how the comics shaped a lot of my Joe headcanon. You know what I mean? I first got issue 50 when I was a kid, and that sucked me in. The Battle of Springfield sucked me in, and I'd
Mhm.
play out the storylines with the original vintage figures. And Larry Hammer's writing, we all know how great it is and how he developed those characters. So
Until
yeah,
we get to Cyber Ninjas, and then I was just checked out.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I
There's a
checked
whole
out.
period there where it's like, what?
Yeah, and then
Just lost
Firefly
me.
became a ninja, and yeah,
Yeah, it was weird. It
yeah,
was weird.
yeah. That was the tail
There's
end
a
of my
whole the
Joe.
shrooms must have been kicking in a little bit better at that point. I don't know.
I feel like Larry was just getting stuff from Hasbro just forced on him. He's just like, well, I'll try and make the best of this poo-poo platter that I'm given.
Yeah. So you kind of touched on the nostalgia, and I think a lot of collectors, particularly nowadays, we pay that nostalgia tax.
Yep.
All of the stuff that we buy as collectors now, for the most part, is nostalgia tax. There's
Yep.
some things because it reminds us of something, like AWOC is kind of very much like Thundercats. There's a
Mm-hmm.
tie-in there. Um, Mythic Legions is like Dungeons and Dragons, and Cosmic Legions is, any number of space oddities.
Mm-hmm.
We have all of this collection thing. So
Yep.
you kind of touched on it earlier, and when we were talking about continuum of collecting.
Mm-hmm.
So were there lulls in your collecting? Did you kind of said there was kind of a period where you didn't really collect and you kind of beat up on your toys a little bit.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So like that definitely has happened over the course of my life, like even into adulthood. So yeah, as a teenager, my interests shift like into basketball and um, girls and like again, like in the country, there's not much to do. So, you'd be with mates, drinking occasionally at underage, which is, I don't condone, but, that's what you did. And so my interests, I got
I
into
don't I
video
don't know
games.
there's too many people even underage who didn't drink. Let's be honest.
Yeah. It's a thing. Like here, the age of drinking is 18. So like, it's not
Yeah,
21 like for you guys, but, um, yeah, it was a thing, but a rite of passage, I guess, in some respects. But
yeah,
so, yeah, like over the course of like my mid to late teens, I was heavy into like basketball. The NBA had really taken off here, so I started collecting sneakers and stuff like that. But I'd also wear them to play basketball in. And I was big into the Bulls. Like the Chicago Bulls were having their dynasty run during that time, and so I started collecting like basketball cards. I sold off like a lot of my comic book or all my comic book collection to buy basketball cards. You're an exception to the rule, Lawrence.
Exactly, Lawrence.
Yep. And
I
yeah,
can't
and
help
there's
that.
another example of me funneling from one hobby into another. So
Mhm.
basketball cards were a big rage here in Australia, and so I collected Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, and Dennis Rodman cards, and I tried to collect as many of those as I could. And I still have those. They're one of the things that lasted from my teenage years till now. They're sitting over here in a corner in the folders. I have quite a collection of those. But then, as I got older, into my 20s, I definitely didn't collect as much. Like the Bulls had finished, Michael Jordan had retired, and then when he came back to play for the Wizards, I wasn't really interested in the NBA. I was going out a lot then. I was in my young sort of nightclubbing era of my life. So again, interest shifted into, buying clothes or, going out or whatever. And so that just, my collecting just dropped off the face of the earth. But I'd still every now and then go buy some comics. I was a big Punisher fan as a kid. And so at some point I was like, well, I want to get my original Punisher run back that I had, because I had pretty much the whole run, including the war journals and stuff like that. So I started doing that. So I started piecing back the Punisher collection, and then I got back into Star Wars for a bit, and because I still had a lot of that early, like late 90s, early 2000s stuff. So some of it. So I started getting back into that a bit, but I dipped in and out, and then I hit my when the 25th line came out, like in 2007, 2008.
Yeah,
That's when I got back into Joe's. That's when my collecting sort of just went back up again. And yeah, it's been pretty much on like that since. So yeah, and here we are.
So are there any are there any collection rules for you? Do you have these rules these are hard and fast rules? Like my biggest rule, this is the rule: if it costs more than my first car, I will not buy it as a singular item.
Yep.
This is the one that I don't try to fudge. It's kind of like Cat Slayer was tempting, but one, I don't have the space for it, and two, it exceeded that price.
Yep. Well,
going back and getting a flag now would exceed that price.
Well, there's a funny story about the flag. So, unlike Lawrence from Punk with Toys, I don't have 8 shipwrecks, so that's not my story to tell. But with my flag, and this ties in with what you've asked me, it's easily the most expensive thing that I've spent money on in recent years. However, it wasn't for the actual purchase of the flag. So the purchase of the flag cost me $20 US. And I won it in a Facebook raffle. And there was, I think, 150 slots in the raffle. And I thought, you know what? I'm just going to buy one slot. It was $20, so it's $30 Australian. And I picked number 77, which is my birth year. And I was like, yep, cool, whatever. Went to sleep. And then the next morning I get up and I went downstairs to make my wife a coffee and myself. And I'm just looking at my phone and I log into Facebook. I got notifications that the guy who was running the raffle had run the raffle. So I clicked on it, watched the video, and the kettle's boiling, putting coffee in the cups and just watching the video. And then all of a sudden, I see my number comes up. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, I just lost it. Like, I started dancing in the kitchen. And I make the coffees and I've come like as quick as I could up the stairs, because we have a 2-story house, like up the stairs with the coffees. I'm like, you're not going to believe what's happened. And my wife's like, what? I'm like, I just won this thing. And she's like, okay, cool. I'm like, no, you don't understand. It's like the holy grail of like play sets. Like, she's like, so what is it? A spaceship? I'm like, no, it's an aircraft carrier. And she still calls it a spaceship. And so I won this damn thing. And the next problem was, how am I going to get this from California, where the guy lives, to Australia? Because they aren't easy to ship.
No.
And you have to ship it basically in 2 boxes, because you've got the flight deck packed in one sort of flat pack box, and then you've got all the other bits and pieces in another box. So to his credit, the guy running the auction, his name's Ulysses, he was able to, do some detective work and trying to get me the best deal on freight. And I think when it was all said and done, it was 1,300 Australian to get it shipped out here.
Oof.
Yeah, and that include taxes and da-da-da-da-da. And it got here and all in one piece. But when I got home and I saw the boxes, I looked at this. There was this green tape on it and said customs. And I'm like, uh-oh. And I'm like, customs have opened this up. And so I get the big box and I rip the tape off and I open it up, and Yuli had packed all the items in bubble wrap and wrapped them individually. He showed me like video of him doing it and putting it in the box, so I knew what to expect. And I open up the box, and the first thing I see sitting on top is the Keelhaul figure, just loose. And I'm like, this is odd. And then, but underneath that, like you could see the wrapping and the tape and whatnot was just all willy-nilly. And I'm thinking, no, they've gone through this thing. And sure enough, they'd ransacked it looking for something, and they'd just thrown everything back in there. And the hull at the front had just sustained like some damage, like it had been like punctured.
Yeah.
And I also had a mint in box law system that I'd also won from Yuli, and they just shoved that down the side of the box and like just crushed it. Like the box was ruined. And yeah, there was another couple of broken pieces off the main bridge, like the front bit where the windows are. Like they'd snapped off. So I had to like glue that back on. And fortunately, I got some really good glue, and it fits perfectly and looks seamless, which is fantastic. But yeah, in a long story short, that's how I got the flag, and that was easily the most money I've spent on toys in all of my collecting, like in one purchase. So yeah, but it was worth it because a complete flag, which it is, it's like 99% complete. The only thing missing is Keelhaul's gun,
which of course is the most expensive piece of Keelhaul.
It's one of them, yeah. Like I've got the fan rail here, so that's good. That's another expensive one.
Yeah.
But to buy a complete flag here or near complete, you're looking at $3,500.
Oh yeah,
like,
yeah.
So I still won ultimately. Like
yeah, you still got a deal.
Yeah, I still got it.
Just shipping it was not fun.
Yeah, it wasn't fun, but we got there.
So any other collection rules besides that?
Yeah, so like I don't like collect beyond my means financially. Like,
okay,
I work for an animal shelter, and we don't get paid richly for what we do. It's a lot. It's enough to live off, and it's enough to have a good life balance and to still collect all this plastic stuff. But I don't live beyond my means, and I'm very measured with my purchases. I'll be patient with a lot of stuff. And if I don't get it the first time around, it's not meant to be on that occasion. I'll wait, and because inevitably these things find their way back to you if you really want it. So I believe in the universe kind of creates these opportunities. So yeah, I think I'm a modest collector, but if there's something that I want, like I'll pull the trigger immediately. Like for instance, the Hiss tank HasLab, like I never even had a Hiss as a kid, so it's not a vehicle that I had a fond attachment to. And I liked it, but I was just never one of those people who loved the Hiss tank. But when I saw that HasLab, I was like, I don't want to miss out on this. Like this is dynamic. It's a vehicle that's huge for the 6-inch scale. I was like, I got to have this. So I don't hesitate like with some things, but other things I'm more conservative. So yeah.
So, is there anything that you don't do with your toys right now that you would like to learn to do or would like to do in the future?
Um, I think a good answer to that is like customizing is something that I've always appreciated, but I've never really found the time, or I don't feel like I know something like you could learn to do, but it's something I think I in part don't have the patience for, but at the same time I just have the reluctance to sort of embark on that. But I kit bash figures. I enjoy doing that. Um, but yeah, customizing is something I really appreciate. Like, for instance, your diary is amazing. Like, I love that stuff because for me as a kid, like, I never had, we go back to the Star Wars side of things. I never had like any of the big Star Wars playsets, like the Hoth
Hmm.
playset, for instance. So
Yeah.
my Hoth base as a kid was styrofoam inserts out of like appliance boxes. You know what I mean? And I'd use those, right? So that's as a kid, you're using something as a dio, and that has always stuck with me. You know what I mean? And that's also probably fueling this
Yeah.
idea, of setting this
Yeah.
up, um, and piecing it together with whatnot. Um, but yeah, that's something that I would like to have the time and the patience and the know how to do. And it's something I might eventually get into. I don't know, but yeah, that's definitely the one thing that pops into mind.
So, if, when thinking about figures, what is the thing that makes you say, I got to have this one?
Well, again, the classified line, like obviously Lenny and the team, they listened to us and course corrected and started giving us like pretty much carbon copies of the original figures. Um, and some of those, for instance, will hold more dear to my heart, like than other characters. So you saw that I've got Bazooka in the cabinet. Like,
Hmm.
I didn't necessarily need him, but I
Yeah.
wanted to get him. But he's not a figure that I'm drawn to per se. Um, but yeah, I guess with this line, it's just ticking the nostalgia feels, and for our grown man hands and eyes, like
Yeah.
the 6-inch figure is a lot, you know, easier to sort of work with than a 4-inch figure.
Yeah. There's an interesting thing. So, it's kind of, with these figures, I think we can get to the point where we can pick and choose. Now, I don't, sadly. I'm the weirdo this is the only line that I do. This is the 100 right now. Now, I may change that later when I have my 25th Viper and, whatever color bat is coming out next. At that point,
Yeah,
I might go, yeah, maybe I need to stop buying those.
yeah,
At some point, there'll come a point where I'm just like, yeah, I don't need that one.
yeah. See, like with the classified line, like for instance, my collecting is very much based on my childhood collecting. So I collect the figures that are true to that original aesthetic.
Hmm.
With that said, I'm not afraid to get a new character. Like, I'm not going to be like, ugh, what is this?
Yeah,
He doesn't belong in my Joe line. Like, I don't want him, man. Like, I like new figures, like new characters. I think that's how you create longevity for this line. Like, if
yeah,
they were to give us every single figure that came out all at once, rather than spreading them out like they do, it would be boring. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
the part of the fun of this line is the guessing game is what are we going to get next? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
this is why
But
things
I,
like
I like when
Polystone,
they take a chance and make something new. I don't.
hell yeah,
I don't need 100% carbon copy of what I've got in a bigger scale. What I would
yep,
like is I would like more where they just take a chance.
yeah,
Just put it out
and
there. What's the
perfect
worst that could
example,
happen? People don't like it? Okay.
yeah,
Lesson
like
learned, move on. Go to the next one.
see the great thing about this figure, like yeah, it's all reuse and repaint, and he doesn't. I've kitted him out with a gridiron MP5
Yeah.
because I didn't like the gun he came with, which is Falcon stuff, which is again reused. But what I love about this figure, it's obviously new. He's part of Night Force, which is the sub team that I am collecting because I never had any Night Force stuff as a kid. So for me, that's new, right?
Yeah.
Because it was not easy for us to obtain here, and I by that stage I'd pretty much gotten out of Joe's, I think, as well. Or I just sort of somehow sidestepped it. But what I also love about this figure is he's an Indian character. Like, he's of Indian descent. Like, he's a new, fleshed out operative that we've never had before. And fair enough, we don't have a backstory for him like all the original figures have, but you can use your imagination and create one yourself. Like, if you were really that way inclined, if you wanted to, you know, give him your story. And the other beauty of it is it works as well as an army builder. Like, he's you know, he's masked. Like,
it's generic enough that you can make it.
He's generic enough. Yeah, and I love that. So that's a perfect example where I will step outside that box of nostalgia and you know, jump right in.
And that's kind of where that trick for me is Joe is really my only 100% nostalgia line. Masterverse is I'm to the point now where I'm picking and choosing. I'm not getting everything because I don't need the 25th iteration of whatever figure it is that they're doing this week. You know, McFarlane stuff. I don't really. Unless it's directly related to the Legion of Doom, it's not going in my collection.
Yep.
Sinestro's calling my name, but those are, you know, that's where McFarlane decided to do a $10 increase on the down low, and no one said anything. That's hilarious to me right there. You can increase your prices $10, call them collector's editions, but it's still the same shit you would get with a $20 figure.
Yep. I'm kind of like fortunate that as a kid I gravitated towards Marvel Comics and Marvel Comics only. I couldn't get into DC stuff. So that stuff, as much as I can appreciate it, like, you know, I love Batman, like everyone loves Batman, and I've got like some favorite characters from the DC world, but I don't have any inkling to even jump into that pool.
Well,
you know what I mean?
A lot of the Legion of Doom thing for me was because Super Friends as a kid.
Yep. Great cartoon. Yep.
Yeah, growing up in that was where that hit, and that Legion of Doom, like a lot of my McFarlane stuff was with the intent of putting those people in the Legion of Doom and doing that thing in my head.
Yep.
To kind of relive my childhood just in 7-inch scale.
Yep.
And of course, Bat Family. That's pretty much the only other stuff I'll buy.
You know, that's where, like, this figure, for instance, is reliving childhood, and for me. And so, like, with the classified line, like, you know, I said I'll get a character like this because he's new. But I won't be like, okay, I've got 6 OG bats, and now I want to get 6 Crimson bats, 6 of the Snow bats, and 6 of the Python Patrol ones. Like, no. Like, I'm happy with the OG ones, and then the other ones, no interest. Like, as much as I like the Arctic bat, like, it looks great. I don't have one. I don't have a single one. So that's probably one of my collecting rules with the line as well. Like, I don't go all in on everything. I buy what I like, and that's it.
Yeah, and that's understandable. I mean, we all kind of we buy what we like. Sometimes for me, I have to kind of temper myself because now I'm getting to the point where I may have to start doing a lot more picking and choosing. Because there's some stuff that I'm looking at it and I'm just like, why did I buy it?
Yeah, see, and I don't ever want to be like that because I've done that. Like every other collector, we've all done that. But now, you know, like you said, with the classified line getting quite pricey because there's so much more of it coming down the line, and you know, even in this year alone, there's been how many X amount of figures. Like there's been plenty of ample opportunities for me to skip things. So, for instance, the Valkyries, didn't bother. The Steel Battalion or Brigade or whatever they're called now, the 2-pack, didn't bother. You know what I mean? Like, which for me is like, okay, I'm happy to give that a skip, and that money that I won't spend on that, I've saved. And then I can be like, okay, well, here comes Shadow Tracker. I want him. You know what I mean? So that's how I operate with this line. I'm not going to buy everything, like I said. And just try and ride the wave like the rest of
Taunt you with my Valkyries, and here, here's my hang on. I gotta pull out my twins here.
Nice. You get two of those?
Yep, got
Yeah.
two of them.
Well, in the stuff that's coming from America, I've got two as well.
So
And a perfect example again, like we just got those, like they've all just been sent out by Hasbro, and then of course they announce the Python
yeah, the
Patrol version.
Python Patrol at $10 less.
Yeah, which doesn't really infuriate me by any sense, like because I understand how that business model works, but what kind of does annoy me about that is like that's like, and I don't even collect the Python Patrol, but like for people who do and who want both, like that's just like bang bang, like it's like you've just taken a hit. Like let's say a person's buying two, like we did of that, and they want two more of those. You know what I mean? Like it's costly. It's a costly exercise.
Yeah, it is, and then that's one of those things where I have to make those decisions, and sometimes when, like I said a little bit ago, when was talking about the, why did I buy that? Are there any other times where you have that moment of buyer's regret, buyer's remorse? Is there anything in your collection that you just look at and go, why did I buy you? I don't need you. I don't want you. I
Oh,
don't.
yeah, look, for sure. Like the perfect example is the pop vinyls. Like down here at the bottom, you can't see at the bottom of this bookcase. The bottom shelf is quite large, like they're deep in like incest like that, or recess, sorry. And it's full of pops. And in there, they're mainly TV ones. So you've got like Game of Thrones. I collected a lot of the Game of Thrones ones, which are cool because like they hold their value. And I feel like that's something that people are still going to cherish for years to come, because it was such a great show. But in the same token, I've got freaking Westworld ones that I bought. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I didn't need them. Like, I liked that show. The first season of that show, or the first two seasons of that show were pretty amazing.
Yeah. Then it kind of went
But I
off the
didn't
rails
need
just a
them.
bit.
Like, those are the sort of things where I go, why did I bother? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Another example, let's grab something here. We talk about Star Wars, like when this was being announced as the last Slave One, I bought this from a place called Zing, which is a subsidiary of EB Games here. So they just sell all collectibles and stuff. Yeah. And so because this was the last Slave One, and I never had this vehicle as a kid, I thought, yeah, I'll buy this just for nostalgia purposes. It cost me $280. Right? You can see the price tag is still right there.
Oof.
And, I don't have regret for buying it, but at the same time, it was bought on a whim. You know what I mean? So it's an example of like, it's not going to, like, I probably couldn't even sell that for $280 right now. You know what I mean? I'd probably lose money on it.
I don't know. That's probably, there's a lot of people who just want that name.
Yeah.
Instead of Boba Fett ship. So it's whatever. At this point, it's whatever. But
yeah, like I have a lot of regret.
Yeah.
And I think that came from lessons learned, like, where I had to sell off my original vintage Star Wars stuff to help a mate. And, I sold that stuff and helped him out, bailed him out of trouble, and he never paid me back the money for that. And there's a negative connotation attached to that for me. So the regret of that, of moving all that stuff on, and this was stuff that I had since I was a kid, but also stuff that my dad had bought me, like when he'd gone overseas and stuff like that, that I had packaged stuff. Like I had a boxed Return of the Jedi Falcon, like complete, and other bits and pieces. I sold it all off, and that's the sort of things where I look back and I kick my own ass, like, because I tried to do the right thing.
Yeah.
And I did do the right thing, but ultimately I lost out. So I think as I evolved with my collecting, I tried to live regret free, and that's how I roll.
So you're pretty much down to one line, though, right? I mean, you have a little bit here and there that are hits and
yeah.
So what about burnout? Do you ever get collection? Like, you ever experience that feeling of I'm done collecting toys?
At this point in my life, no. Simply because, like, and this is a key element of your show, it's right there. What did you find joy in today? Like, I find joy in collecting toys. Like, I enjoy coming home from a hard days of work where I might have dealt with some really nasty shit, like in my job, and there's
Literal
a
and
package.
figurative.
What's that? Sorry.
Said literal and figurative shit, right?
Oh man, yeah, literally and figuratively. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I picking up dog shit is just like, it's second nature for me now. Like, that doesn't faze me. But I'm talking, some of the heavier sides of
Yeah.
my line of work, and coming home and there being a package there and opening that up, that gives me an element of joy, and it takes my mind off that stuff. That's a big part of it for me.
Well, it's giving you that moment away from whatever the current concern is, and
Yeah,
that's kind of what a positive scoping skill is. It's going to give you a moment away from having to deal with whatever it is and a way to deal with it
absolutely.
productively.
Absolutely.
So,
And like, that's intertwined with what we're doing right now. Like, my discovery of the toy tuber world started with like the Full Force podcast with Chris. Like, he was the
yeah,
one that I was going to for all my like G.I. Joe news. And from there, it branched out. I was like, well, there's got to be other people doing this stuff. And I found, people along the way. And I get a lot of joy out of on my days off of going out in the morning, taking my dogs for a walk, and then I'll go, because I'm a dog walker in my spare time too. So I'll go walk other people's dogs. And then I come home on a Tuesday, which is Monday for you guys, and I'm usually home by 11 a.m. and bang, Lawrence with the Punk with Toys is on my day off. And I get joy from sitting there and listening to Lawrence talk about what's coming out and talking about this, that, and the other, and any other toy stuff, and talking to people in the chat. Like, and that's how I've expanded upon my collecting. It's not just about what I collect and what I do in this room. It's about having a community to talk about this stuff with, because I can't go to work and have a team of, let's say, 20 colleagues who I work with and talk about toys. Like, there's not a single person there who does what I do, right? In terms of collecting. They can't relate. Like, they can relate to, like, going to watch the latest Marvel film or, and things like that. But my colleagues wouldn't even know about this room. Like, maybe one of them might know. But if I showed them this, they'd be like gobsmacked. You know what I mean? Like, so having like-minded people like yourself and like Lawrence, for instance, and, guys on a toy kind of mood and whatnot, like, and Tony's Figs, who you had on the show recently, like just opening up that world has just made my collecting so much more enjoyable as well. Like, so much more.
Well, I think finding that community is one of those things that's great. And the thing is that I kind of dabble in different, because I am a multi collector, so I get a lot of, I get more than one. I'm not just in Joe chats. I'm not just in Motu chats. I'm in Motu. I'm in Mythics. I'm in Cosmic. All of these different little groups all try to, it's all good. Now there's some communities that are not great. But for the most part, a lot of the people, I find myself I gravitate toward the communities where the people are supportive and enjoy talking to each other. Not the people who enjoy crapping on everything because they can crap on everything. That to me isn't worth the effort anymore. I got better things to do with my time at my age.
Yep. And that's the thing, like, all the people that I've rattled off, like, are just all good people. Like, you know what I mean? Like, when Lawrence asked me to be on his show, for instance, like, I felt so humbled, like, that he'd want to just chat to me. Like, he doesn't know me. Like, we've never met in person. He's only ever seen me comment in his chat, but he was fascinated enough to want to speak to someone outside of his country who does what he does as well. And, it's stuff like that that I really enjoy about the collecting community. Like, you can go onto something like a G.I. Joe group on Facebook, and it can just be a barrage of just stupidity, nonsense, toxicity. the disease of more, like I mentioned before, like just
Yeah.
pure greed and those things. Like uh, it's almost doom scrolling when you're looking at some of those threads.
Sometimes
And
that's why I don't do Facebook. But that's
yeah,
just
yeah. Look, I
Instagram is a lot
reluctantly,
harder to doom scroll because for the most part it's mostly pictures. You
yeah,
you can get
and
into
like,
some rabbit holes, but I don't have to
oh,
go too far.
and don't get me
So it
wrong, don't get me wrong, there are some good threads, like, some fantastic memes. Shout out to Chaz the Guru. Like,
yeah,
you know, someone who can, he's a perfect example of someone who collects hard, like, like he goes hard like we do. And,
yeah,
but at the same time, he walks on the light side of it. You know what I mean? And he can take the piss out of stuff. And,
yeah.
I find that so enjoyable. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Sometimes it's you just really it's supposed to be fun. So if you're not having
yeah,
fun, just
yep,
stop. If you're
yep,
not enjoying what you do, why are you doing it?
yep,
It's like the guy that goes to the doctor and he says, "Doctor, it hurts every time I do that." And the doctor looks at him and go, "Why are you doing it then?" It's a
yep.
very simple answer.
What's that old saying? Something like, it's something like, you repeat the same thing. It's like the definition of insanity or something like,
If you're if
you know.
you're if you do the same thing over and over again, that's the
Yeah.
definition of and expect a different result.
Yes.
The
Yep.
definition of insanity.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
I just I don't do the whole I can do negative headspace in myself and I can do the
Mm,
negative self-talk to myself. That's part and parcel of, dealing
yep.
with depression and anxiety and all those other things for all of my life. But I have skills now and coping skills and mechanisms that I use to deal with those.
Yep.
In the real world, when I'm dealing with people being an ass hat, as I like to call it,
Hmm.
I have two options. One, I can punch them in the face,
Yep.
or I can use a positive coping skill. Now, a keyboard warrior is a different story. Two things, don't
Yep.
mess with my family, don't mess with my friends.
Absolutely.
I'll bury you
Yep.
for both.
Amen to that, brother. Amen to
So
that.
it's one of
I,
those
I'm.
things where it's interesting. So,
Yep.
but we'll go back to our toy collection
Yep.
conversation. So, why toys? Why are you collecting toys? We're grown men and we're collecting what quote unquote, and I will use this word quote unquote, should be for children. Why toys?
Well, I think an easy answer for that for me is they're affordable. The old adage is the midlife crisis of, guys growing ponytails and buying Corvettes or Ferraris or whatever.
Yeah,
I'm not a car guy. Like, I like cars. I use them as a vessel of transport. They are
yeah,
important.
exactly.
I have to travel 40 minutes there and back each day for work. I need it. I need a car.
Yeah,
But I don't need something that's going to depreciate the minute I drive it off the lot. You know what I mean? And
yeah,
I don't have a garage. So even if I was into cars, I wouldn't have a storage space for one. But
yeah.
I have a room where I can store toys. And
No.
here we are, you know. Um,
So,
that's the easy answer. Like, straight up. Like,
well,
that's the easy answer.
I wonder how many of us actually, because my wife kind of used that phrase that this was my midlife toy crisis
Right.
because it started in 2022. Now,
Mm-hmm.
I hadn't been collecting toys the entirety of this marriage, and that would be last time I bought toys consistently was probably right around episode 1
Mm-hmm.
of Star Wars.
Yep.
And that was the last time I had bought toys other than for my kids. My kids, my
Different story.
son
That's
was
a
into
different story.
Thomas the Tank Engine trains, and my daughter was into Bratz, all sorts of stuff.
Yep.
But
Yep.
I collected comics. Comics had kind of been here and there. Now there were some years where I didn't because I didn't have the money for them. So it was, eat, collect comics. Well, I'm going to eat, so I
Yeah,
had to go.
exactly.
But
um,
she calls this my midlife toy crisis. So
oh,
I'm good. I'm good with that though because
yeah,
that's how it
absolutely.
works.
Like, I I think it's. I've definitely thought about this. Say hi to Lupe.
I know they.
I've definitely thought about this. Like, I look at it as part of that, and I think it's less crisis though. I think it's more, we've spoken already about like the attachment, the nostalgia attachment of where this takes us back to. It takes us back to a place of innocence and happiness and joy and a safe zone. Like when you're a kid, you're playing, with your stuff. You're in another world. Like nothing else matters. And I think that's definitely the big part of it for me. Another side of it is like I said before, we never had 6-inch figures of Joes. Like it's a new thing. And like yourself, when that line hit, 2 years ago now, I think it is, or 3 years ago, like, we're in the cusp or in the zone of the pandemic. Like I was home and I had, I'd resigned from my job, like obviously because I was working in hospitality before the pandemic. And then when the pandemic hit, everything got shut down. And as you know, you would have heard, Victoria, where I live, was the most locked down state in the world, right? So we were home a lot. And so over that time, I didn't have employment, but I still need to have money coming in. So I had a vast sneaker collection, which numbered well over 120 pairs of Air Jordans and other sneakers. So
A lot of shoes.
I had a lot of shoes. And so at that point, I was like, I've got all these shoes, but I've got 2 feet. And I don't get to wear all these shoes that often. Some of them I've never worn and never will. And I need to bring some money into the household. So the Last Dance documentary dropped. And the nostalgia for everything Bulls and Jordan related just went like a lot of other things.
Yeah.
And so I sold off like half of my collection. I've got around about 50 or 60 pairs left, which is still a lot.
Yeah.
But, some of those I wouldn't sell. Some of those I still wear. Some of those, they're just not desirable to many collectors because I bought odds and ends as well. And, the crown jewel of that collection, I still have a pair of original 1985 Air Jordan 1s, which I was never going to sell. And I bought them prior to the pandemic. I paid a hefty price tag for them. And then I watched that price tag just go through the roof over that time. And I've still got those. But yeah, that's how it sort of evolved for me, and I got back into the classified line, and I got bits and pieces and the pop vinyls. I was still getting them and whatnot. So that's where my toy collecting took off again. And here we are. It's still going. And I don't see it stopping anytime soon. So
that leads kind of into my next question. Is there a time you see yourself not collecting? What does that look like for you?
Well, I've thought about this too. So I don't have any kids, and it's highly likely that my wife and I never will. So, this sounds morbid, but I've thought about I don't want her to be stuck with all this stuff if I, suddenly depart this mortal coil. So, I've thought about, as my wife and I get older and we get towards retirement years and whatnot, I would probably sell off a vast amount of stuff. Like, for instance, the flag, I'd sell it off and put that money towards our retirement or towards like a holiday or something like that. You know what I mean? So those are the sort of projection sort of views I've had. Because, as we get older, and our bodies become more frail and our eyesight deteriorates and, walking up and down stairs becomes harder. And,
I feel slightly attacked because I'm wearing the glasses.
Listen, I should wear glasses, but I don't. I'm a naughty boy. So I've got pretty poor eyesight myself. So, I don't see a finish line in the immediate future or anything like that. But, I think you also should be realistic about these things. And, I've one thing I've been meaning to do for a long time is to like catalog the collection and keep a sort of spreadsheet, I guess, of where the prices are out of these things. So, if the time comes, it makes it easier to offload stuff or makes it easier for my wife. I can leave her a note in my will saying, go to the hard
Actually,
drive, press
just
on
the one.
this, open it up. This is what you need to sell this off. This is who you need to speak to. This is where you can take it. Simple as that. And make her life as easy as possible.
There is a site that you can actually keep your stuff. It's called Action Figure 411, I think is what it is.
Okay. Yeah, I think
Uh,
I've heard of that. Yep.
yeah, you can actually curate your own collection there too. So
Okay.
it works
Maybe
for
that's
that
something I need
too.
to look at.
Yeah, so I cataloged most of my collection there. That's how I came up with the prices when I sold my Star Wars. So,
Okay.
um, so when we get to we're getting toward the end, and I've got really two big questions left.
Shoot.
Um, one of them is the most important question of the day, but this one is the second most important question. If space and money weren't an issue,
Hmm.
what would you collect and why?
Look, to be honest, I'd probably stay in my lane, like, and stay in my wheelhouse of what I like I do now. I I'm not a greedy person. Like, I'm not, like, even though I'm an only child, I wasn't really spoiled, but I didn't go without. But I don't feel a compulsion to just have lot more stuff. And, I think when you've got more money, it's easier to spend it. And I think as I get older, like, uh, I realize that, like many people, that time is father time is undefeated. Like,
Hmm.
it's our enemy. As we get older, like, your days of work are X amount of hours. You come home, you've got X amount of energy to devote to, you know, looking after these things, making yourself dinner, sitting down and relaxing and watching some TV or watching the news or whatever. And then, before you know it, it's bedtime. So, and then it's rinse repeat. Um, so yeah, like I'm, I like life experiences. Like, I like to consider myself a pretty worldly citizen. Like, I like to travel and, I like to try new things, whether it's food or, like, I'm very open ended when it comes to, life. So, um, even if I had that money in space, I wouldn't have, a Skywalker's ranch worth of stuff. I wouldn't go back and collect the entire vintage collection of Star Wars figures and be like, my own personal George Lucas. Like, I just wouldn't have the desire to do that. I'm even though I've got a lot of stuff, I'm a minimalist as a collector in some respects as well. And I think that's healthy for me. I think that's the way I just like to do it.
Well, I mean, with the thing is this the stuff that we quote unquote own ends up owning us.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
it's one of those interesting dynamics that we kind of forget is that, just because we bought it and it's paid for but at some point something's going to happen. So one way or the other, it's still going to own us.
yeah,
Let's say you go out and you buy 5 cars. I mean, at some point those cars they're not all going to get driven.
yeah.
They'll end up owning you at that point. So it's
Well,
not there's this I think there's this whole need of if I thought about it and I really examine what I would want in my collection and that question that I ask is kind of to see where people gravitate toward when there's no limitation.
mm,
So
yeah,
if the only limitation we have is our mind at that point, you kind of see people where they kind of would say, "Oh well, I would do this or this and this and this and this and this and this." And, it's about looking at and examining those two basic barriers that we have to collecting and what we choose to do with them.
yep,
Um, Space is always a premium. That's always going to be, you know, right up there with the money. I mean, for some people, the money is higher and the space is less because they don't have a whole lot of things. So,
yep,
but I think for those of us in the collecting realm, space is that premium that's just slightly above the money, because I don't think really at the end of the day, if we don't have the the excess money to be spending on this, we probably shouldn't be collecting toys.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Yeah, you should never get yourself into a financial hole over toys, in my opinion. Like, you know, I I I manage my collecting uh, in a very structured manner, and you know, I still have things like priorities where like everyone else, whether it's bills to be paid or
yeah,
dogs to be looked after, or trips to be paid for. Like my wife's turning 40 next year, and for her birthday she wants to go away. She doesn't want to have a party or anything. She just wants to go away with me, because we haven't had a holiday in our last holiday was 6 years ago when I turned 40. We went overseas. We went to Greece for my 40th. And so to sort of do her the solid of it's her birthday, it's her big day.
yeah,
Like, she wants to go away. We sort of settled on 2 destinations, and one of them didn't pan out, so it looks like we're going to be going to Japan. So you
nice.
know that's where a lot of my money has been being saved as well. But besides collecting this stuff, like chipping away at paying for flights and paying for accommodation, like
Hmm.
paying for dog sitter, like,
Yeah,
because we're going to need that. So you got to really sort of like I'm sure there are collectors who collecting is the be all and end all for them, and that's fair enough. Like, if that's how they live, like, I can't hate on that. Like, that's them. If they don't ever want to leave their little bubble and that's how
yeah,
they're comfortable, then more power to you. But there's life outside of collecting for me. You know, like I mentioned, my job is quite physically taxing and also at times mentally exhausting.
yeah,
Um, and this is a way to combat that, but it doesn't define me. Like,
yeah.
it doesn't encompass my whole life and fiber of being. So
Well, I think that's a good thing. I mean, it's there's outlets, and then there's things that become obsessions to the point where it's all that's left.
yep,
And I don't think for anybody that's doing this responsibly that that's where it should be. It should be, this is something that I do. It's not something that I am.
correct. Yep, it's just a
So I
facet
mean
of
that,
who we are. Yeah.
yeah, it's a small fragment.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm
Yep.
sure people think because I have a YouTube channel and I talk to people that I would have more of that, but I don't.
Yep.
The one thing that defines me is being a husband and a father.
Absolutely.
Everything else beyond that is it's sprinkle and icing on that cake. That cake
Yeah.
is that family man, wife, kids.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I am at.
Yep.
That's the meat of me.
Yep.
Now beyond
Exactly.
that, everything else is just maybe some sprinkles and some icing on that cake. It's
Correct.
just stuff that I do to manage my life.
Yep.
So now that we've kind of gone through all the questions and you kind of got to see kind of where we're at,
Mm-hmm.
we're going to come to the most important question that I have. And it's at the bottom of the screen, but I'm also going to put it up because it's the one thing that I think we have to do as adults is we forget. As children, joy is easy most of the time. I'm not going to say that the kids that are abused are going to find joy, because that's not how that works.
Mm-hmm.
As a child of abuse, I can tell you that it's hard to find joy in that. But
Absolutely.
now, as adults, we have to remember that this is an important aspect, is that I'm not talking about toys are the only way you're going to find joy. I'm saying that finding joy in whatever. Like for me, when my son has a good day at school, I find joy in that. When my dog's acting like a lunatic and licking me and trying to baste me, I think he's going to eat me at some point in the future. I'm assuming that that's what that's for, because the only thing I can think of is he's trying to soften the skin so he can nibble through it.
um.
Sometimes that's just joy because it's so disarming.
Yep. I
So,
The reason I'm looking back here, and I don't know if you can hear her, but she's low growling because one of the figures from the classified in the cabinet
fell down.
just fell and like hit the ground, and she's like, "God, what's that?" And she's low growling. So like,
Uh-huh.
I'm finding joy.
My dog would be over there trying to chew it up. So
Oh, I'm
yeah,
surprised.
no,
Like,
Comet is
yeah.
awful where that's concerned.
Well,
So
this
with
is
that
why.
being said, we're gonna ask you the big question of the day.
Yes.
What did you find joy in today?
Oh, look, I found joy in today waking up and not feeling as hungover as I thought I might be. So that's first one. Um, Taking my dogs out with my wife. We took them to the park, we went on a walk and whatever, and that was joyful. It's sunny day, like I said here. It's beautiful spring weather. It's a top of like 28 degrees today, so it's quite warm. Um, I found joy just in that and like just walking in the sun and you know being able to have the day off today also because it's the AFL Grand Final, which I told you about previously
Yeah.
on Instagram in our chats, and like my team is playing for the premiership flag, so that's going to kick off in what time is it now? It's in about an hour. So
There you go.
just watching that will be joyful. Just that my team is
Maybe.
there.
Let's
Well,
call it.
just that
Let's
they're
say
there.
that's
That they're
maybe.
there is a joyful
There's
thing.
a caveat to that.
There is a caveat. It could go. It can go either way, whichever
It
way
can
the
go
ball
either way.
bounces. But hopefully, the Collingwood Magpies are victorious, and I'll find more joy in that. But to finish off answering this, I found joy in this chat. Like, I've watched your show quite a fair few times, and especially this segment of it. And I think one of the beautiful things about it is this question: is like, what did you find joy in? And like you said, it's important to not live in a world that is often full of doom and gloom, and let that dictate how you be. And like, don't get me wrong, we all have bad days, and we all sometimes wake up on the wrong side of the bed, and sometimes it's hard to like course correct that over the course of the day, and your day can be shitty. Like, but if you can find at least one thing that was joyful in that day, like, then you're winning at least on that front. So yeah, this has been a fun chat.
All right. Well, why don't you tell these folks where they can find you, and then I will tell them where I'm going to be.
Sure. So you can find me on Instagrams at Shark Eyes underscore pics, I think is my handle on there. My fledgling YouTube channel, which you can see in the image above, is Shark Eyed Toy View. Over there, I'm doing like unboxings and reviews, and I haven't fully got like the channel off the ground just due to time and just due to like some technical difficulties, and also organizing all this stuff. But eventually I want to do a show like
You mean
this where
life? You mean life? Life is
life.
that thing. Life is
Yep.
what happens when you're busy making other plans.
Yep, that's right. That's exactly
So
right.
it's one of those things.
Yeah. So eventually I want to do like a show where I talk to people like yourself or Lawrence or whoever, and just bring them on and shoot the shit about toys and other things, whatever. Like I'm very open to exploring different topics. I think it's good to be a multifaceted conversationalist, and not just look at a figure and go, okay, I've got this figure and it is great and yeah, cool, I like it, and you know what I mean. Like, you've got to have a bit of substance to what you're doing,
Yeah.
and this shows a perfect example of that. Like, you ask, it's a different format of questioning, and it's good. I'm glad that you were willing to have me on, like, because I wanted to be a guest. So thank you. Like, it's been fun.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm glad we're having fun. I mean, this, the thing is when I started this, I was looking at kind of seeing what other people were doing, and I was like, is anybody really talking about the reason why we collect?
Yep.
Why we collect toys? What is it about a toy that makes us, as grown men and grown women, and what is it about toys that connects with us? And trying to find that throughput that actually connects everyone together to gives them that there's a reason why we all do this.
Yep.
And as much as
Absolutely.
we might say that it's something different there's something connective to that tissue.
Yeah.
Now, some people, it may be just because they want to be angry at everything not being right,
Hmm.
or they just do it for clicks, whatever. But that's not, I'm not worried about whether or not I
Yep.
get 12 million views. That
Yep.
doesn't bother me.
Yep.
So I'm in
Exactly.
it to have good conversations and meet cool people and get to have a conversation and enjoy time.
Yeah.
This is my me time. This is me getting to be me, doing something that I enjoy, talking to somebody else who enjoys this too.
Yep.
We may not
Absolutely.
enjoy the same, figures, but we enjoy the same,
Yeah.
activity.
And that's the thing. Like, people who are collectors obviously understand other collectors. My wife doesn't collect anything. So, at all. Like, she buys clothes and stuff like that, but she doesn't collect them. She doesn't collect handbags or shoes or anything like that. Like, and she understands that I like, she's accommodating of what I do. She's never like being like, oh, you bought another toy, or oh, what are you
Yeah.
going to do with this? Or, you know what I mean? Like, she's not one of those people. Um, and so I think, you know, it takes the collectors to know a collector. Like, if you, there's definitely something there, like, to be like why we are collectors. Like,
Yeah.
there is a connectivity there. Like,
Yeah.
it's a thing, and it's not something that is new. Like, you know, my nanny used to collect bloody ornamental teaspoons, like,
Yep.
from all over the place. You know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
things. It's just been something that's been going on for a long time, and we as humans do this because we do. You know what I mean?
We do it because we have emotional attachments and it helps us to feel stable in an unstable environment. And I
There
think
you
a
go.
lot of reasons why a lot of people gravitated towards back to something like collecting again during the pandemic is because nothing felt normal.
Yep,
So we gravitate to those things that we did when we were younger to feel normal.
nailed it. Absolutely nailed it.
So,
And the other side of that was we were all at home with like a lot of disposable income for some people, and you know, and just nostalgia just went through the roof. Like,
yeah,
whether it was GI Joes or Chicago Bulls stuff or what, doesn't matter what it was. Like,
yeah,
you saw it across the line. You know what I mean?
yep.
Like, it was everywhere. So yeah, and I think that was a salient point. You nailed it. Like, it was a thing that was a stability mechanism for sure.
We as humans, we try to control as much as we can, but the fact of the matter is the only thing we control in any given situation is how we choose to react to it.
Hmm.
You know, it's one of those hard lessons you have to learn.
Yep.
It's not you don't control anything beyond yourself. And once
Yep.
people accept that, they'll find that there's a lot more to be happy about.
Very
You know
true.
what, Lawrence? You and that Bratz car, we're gonna get you a room, and you guys can work out your issues. All right. So I will be on Ostradamus Toys Live tomorrow night. We will be opening some figures. I will be opening at least a couple of the figures that I have. I will not be opening the Battle Armor of He-Man and Skeletor because those are wall fodder. As I like to call my walls eventually will be filled with action figures, in
Yep.
cases, on card, because I like that feeling of walking into a Toy Story. So I want my toy room to look like a toy store on the walls, and I'm okay with that. So
That's
that's
a
what
good
I do.
thing.
Yeah, and then let's see. Where else will I be? I don't think I'll be unless someone says something. I might just show up randomly on people's lives as long as they're after in the evenings after 8 o'clock Central Time. I'm good. So, um, but next Friday I have another toy therapy. That is going to be with Mega J Retro.
Oh,
So
cool.
which should be interesting to get into this with him, and we'll
Yep.
see where that goes. And other than that, I don't have anything else that I'm doing that I know of. At least I hope I don't have anything else because I'm not. I know my brain is not working, and I remembered what I was going to say earlier, and it took me 2 hours and 15 minutes. Well, it took me about 2 hours. Airbrush. I'm going to airbrush.
Well done.
Never
Kudos,
fails.
bringing it back. There you
That
go.
that brain the brain is a disaster. But with that, folks, I want to thank you all for joining. If you're watching this on replay, thank you for spending that time with me. I understand how valuable it is. And if you can be anything, be kind, and we will see you all next week.